Welcome to the BCEN and Friends podcast. Today, in the first of a two-part podcast, Janie Shoemaker and Bridget Flood speak with Jonny Boucher, the founder of Hope for the Day, who through his coffee shop, Sip for the Day, in Chicago's Logan Square, has been letting others know that it's okay not to be okay, one cup, one conversation at a time. Now over to Bridget Flood, who will get an insight from Jonny on what the phrase "it's okay not to be okay" truly means and how he and his organization, Hope for the Day, is changing the way we deal with mental illness and suicide prevention.
Hello, and welcome to the BCEN and Friends podcast. I'm Bridget Flood, Director of Strategy and Operations at BCEN, and I'm joined by my co-host, Janie Shoemaker, Executive Director. Hey, Janie.
Hi, Bridget.
The BCEN and Friends podcast is where we hold interesting conversations about learning with a wide range of thought leaders, BCEN certification holders, and industry professionals. But most importantly, to create value and insight for you, our professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. We hope you find our discussions interesting, informative, sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always valuable. So Janie, our guest today is Jonny Boucher. Jonny is truly a cool guy with a cool purpose. At a very early age of 13 years old, he got involved in the music industry by putting on punk metal shows in order to create community spaces where people felt that they could belong. And fast forward to today, Jonny is the CEO and founder of Hope for the Day, which is a nonprofit movement empowering the conversation on suicide prevention and mental health education. His purpose and vision is to lead the global conversation on proactive prevention in order to create a cultural shift on how we approach mental health in our communities. What happened in 2010 was a catalyst moment. Jonny's boss and mentor, Mike Scanlon, a music festival promoter, committed suicide. He was the 9th person Jonny personally knew to have passed this way. And for Jonny, this was a final straw moment and what finally pushed him to take action. Hope for the Day was created as a way to honor not only Mike, but all the friends and family members who have died by suicide. And in addition to all the good works that Hope for the Day provides, they've also started a Sip of Hope. Sip of Hope is the world's first coffee shop where 100% of the proceeds support proactive suicide prevention and mental health education. His coffee shop is a perfect space for breaking that silence and having the conversation. Jonny and his team want to create a world where everyone understands it's okay not to be okay. And I absolutely love that line. So Jonny, welcome. We are so thrilled to have you today.
Thanks for having me. Good morning and good day.
Yeah,
pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So I hope I did you proud with that introduction.
That was fantastic.
Great. But we're going to get a little more into it. And where I'd like to start is your journey. Your journey getting to Hope of the Day and your journey at the Hope of the Day, if we couldn't start there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love sharing that. I was born in Peoria, Illinois, and my parents quickly moved up to the Northwest Chicago suburbs, at the age of 1. So I don't really remember that. But the thing that my family always really, really pushed was community and family. My mom came from northern Wisconsin. My dad came from Peoria, both from very big families, both dysfunctional families. My parents love to say that they put the fun in dysfunctional. They have that literally when you walk in their house. But growing up, my dad's family, I felt was really diverse because French and Filipino was what was going on in my dad's house. My grandmother was from Manila, and she met my grandfather when he was on break from war, and really stirred the pot when he came back to Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, with a Filipino wife and a very, very predominant white American family. And that was kind of like the start of embracing community for the Bouchers. Fast forward to me being born and raised in a very diverse community. A lot of my dad's friends were Black. A lot of my mom's family were very open with their struggles. And we always just felt like we had a revolving door when it came to the people that were part of our sphere of influence, our community. And my parents really, really embodied this mentality that we can talk about the good things, we can talk about the bad things, and that if somebody needs help, we gotta talk up, about it, so we can all help address those things. Because both my parents are very well versed and experienced when it comes to having friends having many different hardships and them having to lean in and help, because that's part of what they always felt that they had to do. So when I was 13, I wanted to really develop my own sense of community. So I started booking punk rock shows and in the Chicagoland area. And what started in some friends' basements and backyards, which eventually led to Knights of Columbus halls being rented out, and then going to real big venues all the way to the city of Chicago, where we were doing shows for anywhere from 1,000 people to 4,000 people a night. And it was just so much fun because we were bringing people together for that sense of community that music really allows us to do. When we go to a show, we connect with people we maybe have never met before, but we have one thing in common: we love music. But the more that we talk about things, the more that we realize we have in common. And the more that I put on shows as I was going through high school and then eventually into college, the more doors I opened and the more people I was exposed from around the country and around the world. And as we know, the more doors we open, the more tragedy we see too in those communities. And so when I started working with my boss, Mike, we were doing predominantly Christian and adult contemporary shows, which I'm not a really religious person. I believe religion is a very individual journey that allows us to live through. And I know some people are believers and some people aren't believers. I like to build tables and chairs and allow people to have a seat at the table. So, I guess you could say what we do is the Lord's work. We work with the sinners and the saints, if you will, at Hope for the Day. But it's because my mentality has always been community focused. And just because maybe I didn't care for some of the music that we were putting on when I was working for Mike, the sense of community and that value that it brings on the days that we don't have the concerts and we don't have the good fun events is really important, because that's where we see our backbone of support comes from. But in 2010, I was actually down in Mexico with my father working on a passion project of tequila that we were working on. And I got a phone call from one of my coworkers, Shane, dear friend of mine. And he said, "Hey man, I got to talk to you." And I said, "What's up?" He's like, "I don't know how to say this other than just being honest with you. Mike jumped off his 5th floor balcony in Chicago." And I was in Portezuelo, Mexico, which is a very, very small town. And I had all the air and the oxygen ripped from my lungs, my heart. That believed in me in a way, in the sense of, working in the music industry, where when you're putting on festivals with 40, 50,000 people, and I'm in charge of over $100,000 marketing budget to make sure everyone gets there, there's empowerment there, and there's also responsibility. And what that made me really drive towards was wanting to become like Mike one day. Like, we were all told to be like Mike, whether it's Michael Jordan or it was Mike Scanlon, I feel. And Mike Scanlon taught me a lot in the music industry. He taught me a lot about life. And I feel like I had the opportunity to talk to him and teach him about some things in life. Because Mike was, he struggled, but he was open with his struggles. And he didn't struggle from a mental health perspective. He struggled from a vice perspective. He had a bad relationship with alcohol, cocaine. He was very promiscuous. And one day, as a staff member of his, I was very honest with him that I felt like he was making some bad decisions that eventually would catch up with him. And he tamed his act for a while, and he hunkered down. He got married. He had a baby. But I didn't know all the things that I found out after Mike took his life, what he was really battling. And it showed me, oh, wow, this is a huge issue. And not just because we lost somebody, but the amount of things that he had put himself into, the amount of debt that he had put him into, it was mind-boggling. And knowing that he was trying to handle it all alone, it made sense then why Mike struggled and why his vices became his burdens. And eventually he felt the need to, leave this earth too early. But that day changed my life entirely because I couldn't do anything to help. I had to sit in Portersuelo, Mexico. I had to let myself cry. I had to let myself feel these feelings. I had to go talk to my dad. And then after that, I had to try to put together a marketing meeting together to try to get a $15 million deal for this tequila company that also that same day did not go through. And I thought, wow, how much worse could this day be?
Right.
And so I did what anyone would do. I drank all the tequila around me. And it was good tequila because I didn't wake up with a hangover the next day. The next day I actually woke up very ambitious, and I told my dad I wanted to leave Mexico a day early. And he said that he felt that I needed to go sit out on the patio and just have some time for myself. I did, and I accidentally locked myself on that patio for 4 hours until someone was able to come back and get a key that could open up the door so I can get back safely in the house. So needless to say, I had a lot of time to think about that while also craving, water and nourishment because I had drank my weight and many others' weight in tequila the night prior to take care of some of my pain. But I had a clear vision that I wanted to change what I was doing with my life. And I was, young. I was 24 years old. I had just graduated college, and I felt like I could go do whatever I want. And I challenged myself to think, what is my footprint? What is my footprint in this world, and what can I do? And so I got back to Chicago. I started writing on a piece of paper how many people I had lost to suicide. And Mike is number 9 on that list of 16, which is just, it's like having a very bad golf swing, that you never want to talk about, yet you gotta do something with it to improve the situation. And so I decided that, I wanted to start an organization to help people talk about these things. Because the one thing that I started to realize in my deep dive on how mental health had impacted me was the fact that everyone who I'd lost didn't want to talk about it. They masked it with certain things. And so I was like, well, we need to start this conversation, and we need to build bridges to people to get resources. And it automatically, energized me every single day to the point where I left the music industry. I stopped doing artist management. I stopped doing concerts. I took all the money that I had made and I put it in a bank account, and every month I just chipped away at my bills, and I didn't complain about it. I decided that day forward that I was going to change what I was doing, what my output was, and I wanted my ROI to no longer serve others nor my own personal pocket. I wanted it to really be something that served the community that needed to hear a message that it's okay not to be okay. And from there, it was just, how do we start the conversation? And so 2011, when we became a 501c3, it was green light go, research and development, finding out where our place was, because we are part of the mental health community. We're not the only shop in town, nor in this country. But I realized that within that world of growing this organization, that I couldn't just, worry about Chicago. I couldn't just worry about the state of Illinois. Mental health is a global conversation. And if we think about it, it has been in the same deep, dark corner that cancer, HIV, all these other diseases that, mental health sits within, they sit there until we pull them out of that closet, which allows us to really unmask the reality behind what's really going on. But for me, I just felt like if I could be a part of the puzzle, not the entire puzzle, that together we could build the puzzle for, people in Chicago, people in Illinois, people across America, and eventually be able to, be a contributor to this message going on around the world. And in 2014, we started doing outreach nationwide. We started doing outreach in Europe, and then we just started copying and pasting every year to where we added on Australia. We added on more regions and territory within the UK and Europe. We added on places in Africa where we were going to do our work, because it doesn't matter where we go, we're talking to human beings. And that's the biggest thing, is that as scary as this conversation is, we're all experiencing life. And mental health isn't just the bad days, it's the good days too. And the biggest issue that I saw was that no one knows how to talk about mental health. So we decided to empower and embark on our own education model that is clinically backed and peer-led, but it allows us to not just go in and wave this flag. It allows us to go in, wave this flag, put out the resources that are available in that community, show the resources that are available in this country, because we all have friends and family that are all going through things. But also then put the next step, how to have the conversation, educate people, because in a world where stigma rules everything around us, I need to, let others understand that we've neglected this conversation, but here's the conversation. Here's a digestible version. It's not, if you're depressed, call this number. This is what good days and bad days look like. This is what self-care looks like. Because then we can get to a better baseline of understanding what depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, PTSD all look like in reality, instead of just reading it from a book and coming up with our own assumptions. And that also is there to say that by doing all this, we're inviting people to the table to share their experience, because that's more important than reading out of a book these days. It's how you all get through it.
That's what I love about what you're doing. It's not, here's a phone number. If you're experiencing these things, call. It is people are getting involved with each other, which I think is just truly amazing, Jen.
Absolutely. We need people. We need people in this world. Even on the days where we are like, maybe I'm more introverted than extroverted. It's like, well, we all need us time. But at the same time, we all need people. And people come into our lives for very, very different reasons, specific reasons. But sometimes we don't know why until years down the road, when you get a phone call from someone saying, hey, I'm having a rough day, can I talk to you? Or you're on the other side of that coin and you're having a rough day and you feel that, the only person you can talk to is maybe someone who at one point in time shared their experience about, being impacted. And
yeah.
My story has two sides of it, being impacted and losing people, but then also being diagnosed with PTSD in 2018. I had to challenge myself to also face the same issues that we fight against: stigma, being a man and not feeling welcome to talk about it. I had to dismantle my own stigmas in my own life to go ask for the help, because I didn't serve this country, and from a military perspective. People say that I serve the country in many different ways, but I haven't stepped up to the plate like a lot of our men and women individuals who have gone to fight for this country, who traditionally, because stigma tells us what is reality, right? Like that's BS. Like, but we are, I drive into the city every day and I see this billboard that says, we are fighting the fight against PTSD for the military. And it's like, well, there's many people in the world that are either walking around diagnosed or undiagnosed with PTSD, because that's trauma. That's not just something you get for putting on, a uniform and going fighting on the front lines for this country. There's many different things, but I at the same time felt like, well, I'm not, at a place where I can say that I've done something so courageous as like serving my community. So I'm not the same, when in reality, like me being an individual who has a diagnosis of PTSD and maybe a veteran who has PTSD, we have something in common, but we have individual unique stories and how we got to that journey. Right. And that's important. That's important that we honor that too.
Yes, I think the story is really important. I want to shift this dialogue just a little slightly to the right or the left, I'm not sure which, but we talk about these dialogues with our friends and family. I want to talk about the workplace and what that means in the workplace, when typically we're all, trying to be nice and correct. And what does that dialogue look like for you, or what advice would you give us in our workplace?
Yeah. Well, for the workplace, it's really important that if you are someone who is living with a mental health illness or challenged with one, that you're open and honest with your colleagues about that, so we can all be helpful in your success if you do experience something while being at work, right? But at the same time, that also normalizes it for others who might be struggling. And then from there, you're able to build better pathways and resources to, what HR and what your company, provides for you, versus also what's available in your community. Just because, again, there's a stigma about going to HR and asking for help or calling your EAP number, which is all BS. We know it, very well, because one of our many education programs there is one that's focused on workplace mental health and what it looks like from a corporate standpoint, from a small business standpoint too, because we are all working so hard right now, even more than ever, and pivoting and being from home, right? Like, some of us might have to become teachers now for our kids when we thought there was other people in this world to do that.
Right.
But it's all about being able to understand that you're hopefully working for a company who embraces the culture that allows you to talk freely and won't use it against you. But we also recognize that sadly that is not the reality for a lot of people, and that it's going to take time. But we're in a place now more than ever for time to allow those conversations, especially in 2020, where if it was a movie, it would be called "No, We're Going to Talk About This." And so I feel that when we are able to have constructive conversations about what's going on, whether it's in our homes or in our workplace, we're able to open up opportunities for growth and team building if you're in an office, just by being open with how you feel. Yeah. And being that one who is courageous. And that's what we really aim for with our education, is that you're able to look on how you're taking care of yourself and then how you can take care of others. Because we got to also realize that we as human beings are stretched thin right now. We're all going through like the digital, social media death scroll every day, just to kind of like avoid maybe work or just, whatever's going on, because we're built into this digital age. And it's important that we do take time for ourselves, productive time. And that's where we really dive in with like self-care and what those tools look like. Because if those tools aren't working, then we can go to the next step of saying, well, this is how you talk to a counselor or a therapist. But we need to get to a baseline in society. And it's so important that our workplaces really empower this conversation, because it's horrible when you lose someone to suicide. But also at the same time, when it comes to the workplace, we also have data that allows us to build a need that shows also the people that are just focusing on a P&L, on how the company's doing, what the financial impact looks like if one of your staff do take their life, unfortunately.
Thank you for that. So one of the things, it's all about having the conversation, which is important. And when I read, it's okay to not be okay, I originally read that as, if I feel not being okay is normal, then I'm probably going to talk about it. Right. You tend not to want to talk about things that you don't feel are normal. And is that your understanding of what you mean by it's okay not to be okay?
Yeah, 100%. So we are, we're the ones who are like the origin of where that saying came from. And it's because I wanted, our theory of meeting people where they're at and now where they're expecting me. You think about it, my background in marketing, I would never put, if you're depressed, come talk to us. We need to like throw this out there, and it's like these little things, because what we have found with It's Okay Not to Be Okay is that people interact with that message so different and individually all the time. And that's beautiful. It's kind of like what Dave Grohl said when Foo Fighters played Wembley Stadium for the first time. He sang out to 88,000 people, and they sing back for 88,000 different reasons. And that's the glory that we get with It's Okay Not to Be Okay. When we do outreach with our partners at Live Nation, out at many of their concert and festival grounds, people will see our tent from far away because we are good at what we do. But it's to get them there, not to come and make a donation. It's to come have a conversation. And that conversation can be about, wow, I'm struggling. You guys got some resources. Yes, we do. Wow, I have a friend who's struggling. Do you have some resources? Yes, we do. What more? We have education opportunities. We're also just there to be an ear to bend, because why do people show up at concerts, right? To go get away from life. We can do that by being present, but support them. So when they hear that next song, or they hear that track that they went and saw that artist, or they just are having a bad day, they're like, oh, wait, what was that tent? Hope for the day they said it's okay not to be okay. And then they can Google it, right? The power of technology then becomes helpful to this. And that's really where we get to shine, is just by simply meeting people where they're at, not where you expect them to be. And our work proves that. That's why we are in the coffee business. We work with craft breweries all around the country. We work with different lifestyle avenues to get in front of people, to meet them where they're at. Because sure, alcohol is a depressant, but my uncle drank himself to death. He's one of, those 16 people. I would rather go work with the liquor industry to talk more to people that were just like my uncle, maybe by way of their product, or something strategically like that, where we still invite them to have a conversation, but we don't punish them for maybe having alcohol be what they're leaning on right now. It's the same thing with people who maybe have eating disorders, who either are on, both sides of that coin. Like we need to understand that we can meet people where they're at and invite them to feel welcome, because if not, all we're going to get is people feeling like they're a stray animal and getting pushed into a corner. And that is not healthy for their success if they are experiencing some mental health issues.
That's amazing, because I think what you're doing is meeting them where they're at, not them trying to have to find help. And so your community outreach is I think, innovative and truly awesome. And I'm still hoping to get to the Sip of Hope, because it's around the corner for me.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast with Jonny Boucher. It is so interesting that he found, through his loss and pain, a way he could truly make a difference in this unpredictable world we live today. Join us next time, where we'll speak with Jonny about how we can support one another through these trying times.